National home prices dropped an additional 1.4% last month, and we're now down 16.5% since the peak back in March. This is officially the steepest decline we have seen nationally in the HPI in its history. Sales right now are hovering at about a 20-year low, and the sentiment and vibe out there is essentially as bad as it was during the global financial crisis around 2008, 2009. Just in time for the slowest market in 20 years. In 2 weeks from now, what comes into effect? Well, the cooling off period. Very much so a government move here to cool things off when they are already ice cold. On top of that, the foreign buyer ban will also be coming into effect on January 1st of next year. And we are going to share with you how those are going to affect the market, what you can expect, and of course, the opportunities that you should keep an eye on.
Hey guys, this is Ryan Dash here, along with my co-host Dan Wertel with eXp Realty, and we create videos like this every single week to give you all the education you guys need about the Vancouver real estate market. If you would like to get in touch with us and learn more about your specific property or anything to do with the Vancouver real estate market, please click on the Calendly link below and book a direct meeting with us. Oh, and please also make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you guys don't miss any updates with respect to this gnarly real estate market that we find ourselves in.
All right. So thank you for that, Ryan. And again, right off the top, so the ink is dried on the actual specifics of what the cooling off period is. And we're going to dive into exactly what has come forward now and what you can expect this to do to the marketplace. Now, if you remember, the cooling off period was conceptualized during the height of the pandemic-induced market that was, the most feverish of all time, where we saw double-digit price appreciation year over year here. And so they said, okay, well, look, people are jumping into the market with FOMO. They're putting out these ridiculous offers and they're regretting them the next day, or they're not having time to perform any type of due diligence, get financing, do an inspection, etc. So they're like, we're going to put a pause to that. We're going to find a way for people to be allowed to perform diligence and make sure their purchase is a savvy one. So here we go. Ink is dried. And let's get into what has actually been put forward here with this mandate. And again, this is basically the government's reaction to the government-created hot market. So they're solving their own problem here, if you will. At least that's, I think, the intent. So if we keep in mind here, even in an extremely hot market, even if you have to go forward with a subject-free offer, with no diligence within the offer anyway, it doesn't mean you're not protected, because of course, good agents will perform for their clients all the diligence in advance. Okay, you'll get financing in place. You can even have an appraisal done prior to an offer. You can do an inspection prior. You can read through all strata documents if it's a condo, etc. You can have your client 100% prepared equally to the level that they would be post-offer with subjects, okay? So this is largely protecting people that, in my opinion, are working with less professional agents who didn't do that diligence prior to an offer. Yes, I understand. In the heat of the moment, it might feel like the right thing to do, going $200,000 over ask because you really love that home. But again, working with a true professional will mentally and financially prepare you for your ceiling. And this is why you work with an agent, so that you can remove that emotional aspect where they say, look, you can't afford to go higher. We have to step back. Or whatever the case.
And Dan, let's not forget,
so again,
too,
the mandate
so many
here
of these
protects
properties were
people
listed $200,000 or $300,000 under their actual value.
As maybe they should be. So let's explore this further. This comes into effect January the 3rd, and the cooling off period cannot be waived. So even if the seller's like, yeah, don't worry about it, it doesn't matter. Okay, this is it's in the new contracts of purchase and sale moving forward here, and of course, this, as mentioned, can't be waived, but there are a couple of exemptions on when it doesn't apply here. And that's basically for any time that you're working or looking to buy something that's on leased land. That does not apply. If a home is sold at auction, the 3-day rescission period does not apply. If a home is sold through the courts, it does not apply. And of course, if you're looking to buy a pre-sale, well, they already have a 7-day right of rescission period. So 3 days is obviously exempt for that as well. Now, this is what's interesting. So it is 3 days. You basically, if you come in with an offer, you've got 3 days to rescind it because you've changed your mind for whatever reason. And if you do that, there is actually a penalty involved for the buyer, for the person who put forward that offer. And it's 0.25. It's 0.25% of the purchase price agreed to within the offer. So if you look at the average home price today at $1.1 million, the rescission fee would be $2,750. And this is where, again, we start to poke holes in these ideas and these mandates here. Because guess what? If the offer has been accepted and there's no deposit, because most commonly, at least here in GVRD, the deposit is not put forward until the deal is firm, as in subjects are removed. So if the deal is rescinded, it is now up to the seller to personally go after the buyer to collect that money.
My God.
So that's, of course, if they don't do it, right? If there's no money put forward, if the agent doesn't deal with it properly, whatever the case may be. So again, in a situation where buyers and sellers never talk to each other, now you're going, oh yeah, here's their address, go get your money. And they get to go through the courts or whatever that case may be. So think of the time, energy, money wasted here if the buyer has not put a deposit forward, which will be the most common here.
What a
so
mess.
Again, yeah. Now here again, yes, we that's opening up, a whole barrel of worms, if you will, or can of worms. I think the expression is. Excuse me.
Barrel's better, Dan.
Yeah, there's that many. Okay, so here's another unique one, Ryan. If 3 buyers want to buy a home, how many buyers need to sign that contract?
If 3 buyers want to sign a home, if 3 buyers want to buy a home, then you need 1 buyer who needs to buy the home.
Right, but you would need all 3 if they're party to the contract to sign.
Oh, I see. You mean all at the same time? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're going to be on title.
Correct. Yes, you need all 3.
So, right. So if all 3 buyers want to remove subjects, how many need to sign?
All 3.
If all 3 want to make a change and put forward an addendum, how many need to sign?
All 3. They all
Correct.
need to be involved.
Okay. So someone has decided that if 3 buyers, for example, buy the home and they're under contract, but only 1 changes their mind, that 1 buyer can submit the rescission form and that deal falls apart.
What? That's not that's not even majority.
Doesn't matter. Apparently, this is what makes sense. So 1 person can decide to rescind the contract. They can do it without the knowledge of the other 2. And of course, that seller will be coming after all 3 for the money.
And don't think that those other 2 buyers aren't going to get into a mess themselves too.
Well, and this is the thing. So imagine if it is a competing scenario, or imagine there's a backup offer on that property. So this 1 of the 3 buyers rescinds. The other 2 still want the home, but now they can't get it because that backup offer has now gone into first place. Just a mess.
Yeah, okay. This is crazy.
So understandably, the buyers do not have to give any reason to rescind. It's just simply a form that's put forward, and that's understandable. Now, should the transaction collapse for any other reason, such as the buyer not being able to secure financing, both parties must provide a written agreement before the deposit can be released.
I don't know what
if
that
the sellers
means.
don't? Yeah. What if the sellers don't agree? I don't agree to the reason that you're collapsing.
Yeah. Well, and arguably, they don't need a reason. That's the other thing. So then why would the seller have to sign anything? It's just, all of this is there's so much redundancy in here. And this is just going to create havoc, Dan. Havoc amongst buyers. Not even havoc between buyers and sellers. This is going to create havoc amongst buyers. It's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's more. So the notice of rescission can be sent in one of 3 ways. It can be emailed. It can be sent by registered mail.
Well, that's not going to take long.
Or it can be sent by fax. Okay, this is 2023. This thing comes into effect, and faxing it is an option. Okay, let's play out this scenario. An offer is put forward. Okay. It is subject free. Woohoo. On day 3, no rescission has been received, so the seller thinks the deal is firm. They've been notified to give their tenants notice as soon as the deal is firm. Mm-hmm. They go on day 4 and give their tenants notice. Tenants are pissed off and they leave that week. They go and find something else on day 5 or 6. On day 7, a registered mail shows up saying that they're rescinding the offer. Oops. Okay. Now, again, this is a hypothetical, and obviously most of these things are going to be sent by email. But again, you're opening up all these potential issues for no reason that I could discover. Like, you know what I mean?
Don't think for one second that buyers won't take advantage of registered mail if they can.
Yeah, well, there you go. And then you got to think about this. So now you're involving the tenancy branch, because that seller is like, oh my gosh, I still have this place. It's vacant. Well, guess what? Rental market's red hot. I guess I have to re-rent it because my tenants are gone. They get a higher rental rate. The tenants that just left find out. They come back, sue the landlord because they were kicked out for no reason because the home had never sold. So again, this thing just gets messier and messier the deeper we go here.
Yeah, and then what side of the law do they fall on? Right? Like that's not clear either.
Yeah.
It's just creating a mess.
Okay. Let's go further. So if there is 2 offers in place and there's going to be a backup offer. Okay. So one party wins the offer and they're under contract and they've got 3-day right of rescission. Maybe the next day, the buyers who lost are like, you know what? Okay, sure. Yeah, we'll come in. We're going to write a backup offer, and they get it accepted. And the first offer has subjects that's, let's say, are 7 days. Okay. The right of rescission period for group number 2 starts on the day of acceptance, meaning the other group has 7 days to remove subjects and get the place or not. But the first group has the option to rescind or not only during while the other property's in contract. So they'll never truly have the option of rescinding in a position where they had the home under contract.
This sounds like it was written by realtors.
Yeah, well, this is just it, right? Do you remember the real estate board reached out to the government to try and help them design how this should be done? And essentially people that were not involved in real estate wrote this, and this is why there are so many potential issues here.
It's kind of crazy because when you think about also how hot markets work, right? Like, so much due diligence has to be done, like you were talking about earlier, Dan, in the front end of the transaction. Right? Like including, don't think for one second that the seller's not going to price their property $300,000 too low. Right? So are we also going to have to do due diligence there? Like where does this stop? Right? This is just, it's tinkering, and more government intervention on a process that, honestly speaking, this just is a horrendous way for sellers that they just get penalized, and the buyers just get confused. Like this is convoluting the whole process, when if you hired the right professional at the start to navigate markets like this, you would find yourselves in arguably safer positions than whatever this is going to create.
Yeah. Well, and that brings up a very important point. So yeah, right now it's a very cold market, and understandably, the vast majority of offers going out have subjects in them, and it's just one buyer, going up against one seller, if you will. But let's get hypothetical here. Let's say there's another 2016 ahead of us, another 2020, another 2021. Okay, maybe it's another 25 or 5 years from now. Okay, so 2027, we're in a ballistic hot market again. The cooling off period was originally conceptualized to give people time to perform due diligence, right? To get the financing in place and to get the inspection in place. Okay, red hot market. Property hits the market, under sophisticated agent, in my opinion, offers on it against others. Well, first off, if it's a hot market, these offers are going to be subject free just like they were before. Okay. So if you come in with a subject saying, okay, yeah, I want financing and I want inspection, even if it is just within the 3-day rescission period, well, guess what? That subject free offer is going to win every time. And you're subject free. You can't do an inspection. You can't back out due to financing. And I will tell you, at the height of a hot market, it takes longer than 3 days to figure out if your financing is going to go through or not. It takes more than 3 days on average for an appraiser to get in and tell you what that property is, if, again, you're doing the due diligence after the offer standpoint. So it doesn't actually do what it was originally intended to do. There is no way to perform diligence in a hot market. And again, inspectors get busy too. In a red hot market, they're saying, look, if you guys think anything's happening next week, book me now because I'm not available 7 days out. And
what if you can't get an inspection in the time period?
That's exactly it, right? There was an A lender during the peak that said we need 2 weeks to approve financing right now. So 3 days does absolutely nothing in a hot market where it's intended to work.
Can I also say something here? Because in my mind, the seller side of things too, right? Like, okay, look, hot market, I get 3 offers. One of them's got subjects. 2 of them have subjects in it. The other one is coming fully prepared. Did the other 2 have a chance anyhow? They don't.
Just like before this cooling off period thing was designed, they did not.
They didn't, right? And, okay, so we want to get enough time for people to get financed. You're dealing with a professional agent who can get you into a home in a very hot market. What's the first rule that they're going to abide by? You are not going out looking at property unless you're pre-approved. You won't. Like, I would not go out in a hot market with somebody who doesn't have their financing in order. I just won't go. Because it's a waste of everybody's time when you're up against people who are organized. So it comes down to strategy, comes down to being a professional, and the market has its own way of dealing with these things. That's the crazy thing. Why are we putting our finger in it? It's, the people who weren't winning, it's likely that the strategy that they were going by wasn't effective. And that's a reality of a hot market, whether it's housing or anything else.
It's so true. Yeah. Again, this is in essence pandering to a lower common denominator here.
Yeah, very much so.
Now, in essence here, so in summary, this was originally designed to allow buyers to perform due diligence on a property, avoiding the potential risks of a subject-free offer in a very hot market. And now that the details are in, I'm afraid it does none of this. None.
Surprise.
Okay, so is there any benefit to this? So let's flip the coin here. Let's not just poo-poo all over everything here. Is there some positive to this? I think realistically, sure. Hypothetically, we're in a crazy market. You've got this. There's 10 subject-free offers, and your client, while they can afford it, they do have second thoughts. They're like, oh my goodness, we just bid $300K over ask on this beautiful detached home. I'm definitely having second thoughts. Then in that scenario, I guess to calm those nerves, they can back out. Again, right? Let's say they can afford it. The property is sound, inspection's been done, all that great stuff. But they actually want to back out because they're having second thoughts. Life happens too, right? Maybe between the day of getting that accepted offer and 2 days later, you've lost your job out of nowhere, right? These type of things do happen. In those cases, yes, you can back out and this could work for you. Again, you're going to be financially penalized for changing your mind to the point of 0.25%. But, is that worse than paying, I don't know, $3 million for a home that you decided you don't want or maybe can't afford based on this life change? So I think there will be the odd scenario where this will help some people. Again, I think that's going to be a vast minority of the market moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I'm jury's still out for me on this one. As much as I feel like, yes, I think, in those existential circumstances, but I that's also what a deposit is for, on the seller side of things here. Like, we can know that there's no longer a true subject free offer anymore in this respect. Right. So I don't know. This is really going to change the game in many ways. And I think all we're going to end up seeing is a more litigious nature of trying to buy homes.
I think, what about this? Okay, let's reframe it. Could they have done this right? What do I mean by that? What if this was done so it was a 7-day right of rescission, just like pre-sales, and the sellers were mandated to allow for access to the property for inspection and appraisal, no matter what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would work.
That at least would constitute or at least help people get or be able to perform diligence. Again, like you said, subject-free offers now go out the window. There's no such thing anymore, leveling the playing field, because still this allows for subject-free offers to trump a subject offer every day of the week. Mm-hmm. So then, you got 7 days to actually give enough time. Inspectors are allowed in, appraisers are allowed in. That would level the field, and that would allow people to actually perform diligence and maybe walk away.
Or how about
with more knowledge?
How about making some preconditions for the sellers? Okay, you have a strata property. You cannot go to any particular, you cannot go to market without first having your strata docs available, right? That's what you got to do first. You can't go to market without having that available. You also cannot go to market with a single family home without your PDS done, or maybe a pre-inspection that's done first, right?
Right.
So that you have a seller's inspection. So you don't even need to go in and do an inspection. Now the home has been done. You just got to go read your documents. You're prepared in advance, and then you have a bidding opportunity time.
Exactly. All sorts of ways that this could have been done, in our opinion, better. But hey, if you don't consult real estate professionals before coming up with this type of legislation, not too much of a surprise that there were some holes left in it. But okay, well, we can't beat this thing to death all day. We'll see how it pans out, obviously, and of course they can modify it too, right? Maybe they can improve this thing over time. We will see. Again, today it's almost useless because we are in a cool market. But hey, they're prepping for another hot market. I get that. But let's move on here, because there's another big thing that's happening. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, it's not like the government's going to ever print more money again. So
they're not going to what? Sorry, I missed that.
Well, we're just saying there is going to be another hot market, and it's going to be the result of the government printing more money. But anyhow.
Right. Yes. Okay. Lots of things they can do here. But let's get into the other big shift that's happening in January, and that's the foreign buyer ban, which, again, 2 weeks prior to it coming into effect, they have finally outlined exactly the specifics of what this means. So let's get into this now.
Yeah, so the Prohibition on the Purchase of Residential Property by Non-Canadians Act is officially a foreign buyer ban. Now, this comes into effect January 1st, 2023. The Act prohibits individuals who are not Canadian citizens or permanent residents of Canada from purchasing residential property in Canada for a period of 2 years. The prohibition also applies to corporations that are not incorporated in Canada or are controlled by non-Canadians. Penalty for helping someone buy can be up to $10,000, and a contravention of the prohibition could result in a court-ordered sale of the residential property, which would result in the non-Canadian receiving no more than the purchase price originally paid for that property.
Just hold on one sec, because I love that line. It basically allows the government to profit from this scenario in a hot market. So we found someone who bought a home illegally in Canada. The property's gone up in value. Let's go after them and get the spread.
We'll take their property transfer tax, and then when you go to sell it again, we can take it again.
Yeah,
and never mind the $10K penalty. Let's just squeeze them a little bit more. Take some more.
And if this was purchasing a resale property that had never been lived in, they've also got GST twice on that. So let's not forget about that little bonus they've written up for themselves.
Exemptions for certain classes of people, such as refugees, individuals who purchase residential property with their spouse or common law partner that temporarily resides in Canada. So a couple exemptions there. There is no mention, none, about commercial property or farmland. I wonder why. No regional exemptions noted either, right? So nothing like Whistler or, recreational playgrounds, things like that.
Yeah. Well, let's first talk about this, because this, again, was designed in the height of the feverish housing market to create the illusion of the government doing something to cool it down. Mm-hmm. Now, when we peel back at least the first layer, we recognize that even during the height of the pandemic market, 2020, 2021, less than 1% of homes nationally were sold to foreign buyers. So this is, going up against or blocking out a very minute part of the market. But again, it sounds nice. To me, this is more lip service. Mm-hmm. And yes, there will be areas that will be highly affected, or at least more so than others. But still, again, when you're looking at a national lens here, it is less than 1% of the entire market that's going to be affected here.
Do you know what xenophobia is? Xenophobia, by its very nature, is a national policy that creates prejudice towards people of other countries, right? And that's exactly what this is that, let's not forget, Canada, we are a population of people from other countries. We are all immigrants. We were all immigrants at one point, right? So to me, I am a son to immigrant parents, and many of my family and a lot of my friends all are the same way. And so for me, this is embarrassing as a Canadian, right? The issue here too, Dan, like last week on our podcast, we released, some notes with respect to immigration and how, by 2032, foreign workers will make up almost 100% of the labor market that our economy so desperately needs. We had 950,000 jobs a month ago that we needed to fill, right? Very robust economy, even with the interest rate hikes we've seen. And yet now we're telling people, hey, you can come work here, come and pay your Canadian taxes, but you're a foreigner, so you can't buy the real estate here that you are working so desperately hard to put your family in.
Exactly. So again,
I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way.
For sure. And again, this is just plastering over, a Band-Aid over something that's much bigger. And it's illusionary in the sense that, they're doing something because the foreign buyer ban. So that's why prices are coming down. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Let's increase our immigration too. Let's just keep.
Well, that's the exact other side of the coin here, right? They're saying, okay, well, we're going to ramp up immigration. You can be a foreigner, but you just have to have boots on the ground here, essentially, to be able to buy. So lots of ways around it. Just if you're living outside of the country, all you have to do is look to buy commercial or farmland. So you can still place your capital into our country. It just can't be in something that someone could reside in. So,
but I think largely they've done commercial because, or industrial property. What's the average cost of a half acre of industrial property? Like $3 million, $6 million. Like, good luck. No foreign worker is really going to be able to afford that. So, in my opinion, this is just for votes. This is just to get reelected.
Yep.
Anyhow, let's talk a little bit about some news down south here. Our friends to the south actually had a decent inflation print, all things considered. Dropped for their fifth straight month, down to 7.1%. This is down from the peak, 9.1%. And while food and fuel dropped, shelter rose by 0.6%. This is, a lagging indicator, and that's quite evident here. And this puts us back down to December 2021 levels, right?
Yeah, the U.S. inflation level is where it was a year ago, which sounds wild to say because, a year ago, we were still in a feverish market and nobody was talking about inflation, that's for sure.
And they should have been.
Well, yeah, definitely, for sure. It was more than bubbling under the surface. But again, it just goes to show that, okay, now inflation's a hot topic. It was at this exact number, it was at 7.0 this time last year in the States, but it wasn't a topic then. And again, wasn't being pushed by the media obviously as much. And of course it wasn't felt at home. So I get why it wasn't discussed nearly as much, but if you want to take it as a positive indicator, inflation in the States is where it was a year ago. And things didn't feel as bad then because of course we had the wealth effect in full effect, thanks to the housing market.
Totally. And up here in Canada, we were sitting about 4.7% at that time, right? We knew inflation was running hot. And we still didn't do anything. In fact, we waited until it was 2 percentage points higher than that before we even introduced anything. But anyhow, what does that mean? That extended, in my opinion, the rate at which it's going to take for inflation to come back down, right? So depending on where you're looking, I think for a lot of next year, we're going to see some smaller rate hikes. I don't think the rate hike story is over. Certainly the hawkish tone from the US indicates that they're probably going to continue to rise, I think above 5 to just above 5% before they start ratcheting it back down. And that'll take probably most of next year.
The current economists are pointing until 2024 to get inflation back within the 2 to 3% nominal mark that they want. And of course, that does leave it open, like you said, to some potential future hikes here. The Fed, their last 4 hikes were 0.75. And then this last week on December the 14th, they only did a half point. So that, to your point, kind of opened up some of that dovish sentiment. Now, that is still the 7th in a row, just like Canada, only they're up 4.25 points since the beginning of the year. We're up 4% since the beginning of the year. More hikes in the new year, but to a lesser degree. Again, we'll see, right? If you see inflation come off drastically, they're going to pull back because, again, the housing crisis when it comes to affordability is getting really loud now. Mm-hmm. And so, again, to keep yourself in power, you're going to try to satisfy the largest common denominator, which is definitely becoming homeowners and people who are trying to make those mortgage payments that are $2,000-$3,000 more a month than they were at the beginning of the year. So it's getting pretty critical for some. And of course, those voices will become louder than you'll hear about people complaining, let's say, about fuel and food costs.
I think it also applies to developers too. You got to remember people carrying, tons of inventory here who are using borrowed funds in many instances to build the projects. They're going to continue to strap inventory until rates become more affordable for them to carry inventory. And so until that happens, that'll be another issue that we're going to have to deal with. The nasty supply issue is worse than the sticky inflation issue, right? But they're compounded.
Yes, agreed. Definitely. And okay, so while it can be easy to poke holes at things here, we also are very good at finding opportunities in crises. And this is where, of course, a huge dynamic shift can happen for people that are in a position to potentially buy and take advantage of things like a cooling off period, higher interest rates, the foreign buyer ban. So let's explore a couple of areas that we think might be good opportunities in the next couple of quarters here. And I think first one, foreign buyer ban. Places like Whistler do have a larger foreign buyer percentage than, of course, the national average. It could be as high as 8-9% kind of thing. So these recreational areas that are now banning foreigners completely may see a bit of opportunity there. Now, Whistler is a bit extreme because it's so small as far as as far as the inventory and available homes goes. But again, you can start to look to other places that were outside of the 20% ban and identify those as potential opportunities moving forward. And I think too, we saw a lot of foreign capital going into the pre-sale market. Definitely in Toronto was the leader in that, and then here in Vancouver as well. So with that element removed, you're going to potentially see some things like developer incentives again, because they're going to want to offload product. And if you've removed a percentage of buyers, it's going to make them a little bit harder to sell. So you can look for some opportunities in those kind of prices. Assignments for sure. Again, just because of the nature of the climate right now, assignments are where there are going to be some definite opportunities, sometimes probably to the tune of 6 figures. You have to work with a professional for those. Those are not the kind of things that hit the public market. So if you are looking at picking up a pre-sale at a radical discount, hire a professional because they know how to access those. And what else, Ryan? Do you see some other opportunities on the landscape here?
I think 2020, end of 2023, early 24, I think is where we're also going to see some more opportunity. There's going to be a lot of refinancing that's going to be taking place there, and rates still won't come down to where they were. So I think some of those people who maybe, I wouldn't say overextended at the time, they listened to the forward guidance of the Bank of Canada and took out a loan to get a home, and were able to secure a rate at say 1.5%. They're going to be refinancing at 3.25, maybe higher than that at the end of 2024. That's going to be a humongous wake up for some people. And I think if you're home shopping, there's going to be some opportunities there where people just can't afford their refinance and they're going to be forced to sell. So I think, keeping a watchful eye on the marketplace and parking some cash on the side for opportunities, whether they come through the pre-sale or whether they come through the refinance sector, there's going to be opportunity and it's still coming.
Perfect. Great place to wrap it up. A couple things for you to look forward to. We are going to be analyzing our 2022 real estate year predictions, just like we did last year, and let you know which ones we hit right and which ones we were radically wrong on. And then we're closing out the year with our 2023 predictions episode. That's one of our biggest downloads of this entire year, so you won't want to miss it for next year. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.